Committee. On behalf of IATEFL, I would like to welcome all of you to this 16th webinar in our series with Susan Hillyard, who will talk about challenging ELT, challenging methodology to reach challenging English language learners. Susan completed her Bachelor's degree of Education with honors at Warwick University in the UK. She has working experience in 17 countries as a teacher, head of department, director, speaker, workshop facilitator, consultant, researcher, and online tutor. She was Professor Language 4 in Lenguas Vivas and at the National University of Technology Teacher Training Colleges, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Susan has also co-authored a resource book for teachers, Global Issues for OUP, and a Teacher Development Interactive Teachers Knowledge Test for the online course for Pearson, New York. She has authored and is a teacher on online module Language and Globalization for the Masters in ELT at La Sabana University, Columbia. In addition, Susan is the Special Educational Needs Network Coordinator and a committee member of the YLT SIG, Young Learners and Teenagers, for IATEFL, the coordinator of English in Action, teaching English through drama using Action Sacks in Special Education, Ministry of Education, City of Buenos Aires, Argentina. This webinar would not be possible without our tech host, and I would like to thank Mercedes Viola for her invaluable support today and in the lead up to the webinar. If you have a question, please write it into the Q&A pod on the screen rather than into the chat box. You will find this below the slides. At the end of the webinar, Susan will endeavor to answer as many questions as possible. We will also make the slides from today's webinar available for 1 week on the IATEFL website. They will then be moved to the archives for members to view along with the recording, which will go into the archives after the webinar. As website updates are done by IATEFL head office, both the slides and recording will not be available until next week. I would also like to mention that IATEFL does not currently provide certificates for online webinars or conferences. And now, over to Susan.
Okay, thank you, Marjorie. I hope everybody can hear me clearly. We've done the test, and it seems to be good from our end, and I hope it's clear for everybody. Okay, I'm going to be talking about challenging ELT, and I'm using this word challenging in several different ways. Basically, I'm using it as a verb in the sense that we should be challenging ELT methodology, and I'm using it as an adjective in the sense that the methodology that we are using here in our program, which is what I'm going to be talking about, is challenging methodology. It's challenging for the students, it's challenging for the teachers, and it's something that we have to learn to do. It comes basically from my degree that I did at Warwick University many, many moons ago, if I can do the long ago action from There Was a Princess Long Ago. It was basically a degree in dramatic arts, that is educational drama. It's a method brought by Dorothy Heathcote in the 60s. And it was used all over England and Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland in schools to teach any kind of subject. So it's basically using your imagination to learn. So it's a learning medium. And I have changed that learning medium into something which can be used in teaching English. And I have been doing it for 40 years. In 5 different countries on a long-term basis. I've lived and worked in 5 different countries, and I've also visited another 12 countries where I have been promoting this methodology. It isn't my methodology. It's just that I have developed it and honed it down, and I'm continually learning, and I would like to pass it on to you today. So I am challenging ELT methodology, and I'm also trying to explain a challenging kind of methodology for students and for teachers to grasp and to get on with. Once they do grasp it, and once they do get on with it, then they don't want to teach or learn in any other way, because it's so motivating. Okay, I've got the slides here, and I'm going to start with the first slide. If you have any questions, please put them in the box. Wait a moment. Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing, sorry. Okay. These are the questions for today. Why is ELT failing to engage students all around the world? We hear about dropout rates, we hear about unmotivated students. I used to hear about unmotivated students only in secondary. I've been a secondary teacher all my life, really. And I've just gone into primary. Although I have done some primary teaching, I've done some kindergarten teaching, and I've done some adult teaching. But my passion really is secondary. And I used to hear that students were unmotivated in secondary, but then I began to hear that they were unmotivated in primary. And I began to look at why it was that students were unmotivated at school, when I think that school should be a challenging place, should be an exciting place, it should be a place where children learn the joy of learning, and they should really feel a passion for what they are being offered. And this apparently wasn't really happening. So I began to look at what it was that we were doing in secondary school that we were doing in primary school, and how we could pass that on. And this is where the drama came in, because drama really is just extending children's childhood play into the older years. And I think we all need to play. I think we all need to be creative. I think we all need to maintain our childhood curiosity, if you like, about the world. I also want to know how we can embrace diversity. I asked you, those of you who were in the classroom early, to put up what country you come from. And I found up to now, we are from, let me see, 18 different countries. And I think there are some people who haven't said yet what country they come from. So I'm interested in diversity in general, having lived in 5 countries and learned how other cultures tick. But I'm also interested in diversity in the classroom and how we can develop this intercultural ability amongst our English language speakers all around the world. In my position as coordinator of English in Action, where I'm training 15 teachers to teach English through drama in special education, we have enormous diversity. And I'm going to explain that to you when I go a little bit further along. Okay, how do we make education more equitable? I'm very concerned about this huge gap between the rich and the poor, huge gaps in status between middle class and lower working class. I'm very, very concerned about poverty and how that affects learning. And I feel that we can do something about it, but we have to think about a sustainable education if we're going to have a sustainable world. So my understanding of what education is not just about English language teaching. It's about what real education is and how we can use that in our English language teaching to make a more sustainable education. How can we include all cultures? How can we make sure that we really do address diversity and have an inclusive kind of education in all our schools all over the world? And how do we help teachers to help their students no matter their challenges to learning? So instead of saying, oh, these students are terrible, instead of saying these students aren't disciplined, instead of saying these students can't learn anything, how can we as teachers change and say, okay, I've found a way to help these students? So what I'm trying to do all the time is to help teachers to help their students. Put your questions in the box, please, and I'll try and address them. Yeah, okay, I'll try and address them at the end, so if you put them in the box. We work with Peter Brook's idea of the speaking body in the empty space. Here in our special schools, we have very, very few resources. Our main resources are teachers and students. In our teaching of English in special education, we started in 2010, so we're 5 years old now. In our situation, we don't even have one English book provided by the ministry. So I go begging. I go to the publishers, I go to the bookshops, and I beg for books. And luckily, we have been provided with class libraries from certain bookshops, and the publishers have been very, very generous. But I really am concerned that we can use our resources very, very well if we think about it. And if we think about how we can use the speaking body in the empty space. Many of you, I know, have similar resources to ours, none. And so we need to use those resources that we've got to advantage. So how do we use the speaking body in the empty space? I've always used drama, educational drama, to teach English. But I've recently been researching on gender issues. And I've come across this expression, performative activity, which really represents drama for me, but it may be a nicer word for people, because some people are put off by the word drama. They get very frightened when they hear theatre or drama, and they think it's about, to be or not to be, that is the question, and that you have to be an amazing theatrician. I am not an amazing theatrician. I'm a dramatist. And I divide those two things very clearly in my own mind. Performativity refers to the doing of language. It opposes more abstract conceptions of language as a structure of meaning or symbol system, with an emphasis on the role of language in the concrete, in particular transactions of speakers and hearers at specific sites. Performativity focuses on language as action. Hence the name of our program here in Argentina. It's called English in Action. Oh, you can see the sun shining through my skylights and reflecting off my glasses. I'll try and turn a little bit. Okay. I've recently been in conversation with Scott Thornbury, who you all know, and he has done a lovely PowerPoint on the learning body. And I've actually stolen this quotation from him. Sorry, Scott. He's not here, so he won't know unless somebody tells him. Okay. Acting out word meanings helps school-age children to increase their L1 vocabularies. Enacting or miming a verb resulted in better retention than explaining it. This comes from Lindströmberg and Boas, 2005, and the reference is there. And I just took it from Scott Thornbury's The Learning Body. I was very excited to see that he's interested in this issue. I think that's a very exciting thing. So, we are called English in Action. It means that we learn the language through acting out and also through doing action, through language games, through miming, through role-playing, through improvisation. And we have certain rules that we apply in all our classrooms. These are the achievements that we have made over really the first 3 years we got to this point. Our students come from the street. Some of them are street kids. Our students come from orphanages. Our students have a whole array of learning difficulties. We teach in hospitals. We teach in a psychiatric unit in a hospital with adolescents. And we have made these achievements through our English in Action program. So I'm going to be showing you some photographs now. We're going to stop the recording in a moment because I cannot have the photographs recorded to go up on the site because I cannot have them published. But if you will notice in the photographs these achievements, each photograph has a title at the top, and I would like you to notice particularly what the students are actually doing and how we are making these achievements, how we are reaching these goals of ours. We can have the recording back. Okay, I hope you were able to have a look at those photographs. I went through them very, very quickly because I didn't want to, I couldn't speak while we were not being recorded. So I'm going to go on now to talk about the theory and the practice. And I hope that I'll be able to explain everything to you clearly. Okay, our motto at the beginning was from I can't to I can. Most of these students are in special schools because they have failed. And they have failed for all sorts of reasons. And they come to us with the idea that they can't learn English. English has never been taught in special schools in Argentina because nobody could think of a way of doing it. And this is why I use the word challenging, because we've also challenged that idea. We've challenged the idea that students in special schools cannot learn a foreign language. And we are actually doing it, and we think that's very important. The Special Education Department heard about a project I was actually offering to Lenguas Extranjeras, which is the Foreign Languages Department of the Ministry of Education. And the Special Education Department had been thinking for years about how they could comply with the law of inclusion and include all mainstream subjects in the Special Education Department, one of which was teaching English from grade 1, which happens in all the state schools in Argentina. So when they heard about my project, they thought, oh, this could be a really good way of doing it. And so I was taken out of the Foreign Languages Department and I was entrenched in the Special Education Department. So we had this motto from I can't to I can, so that we tried our best to convince the students that they really could learn English. We also had to convince the directors of the schools, because this program was sort of thrust upon them, if you like, and we just started going into the schools and started teaching English. And many of the directors felt that it was mission impossible, and there was a lot of skepticism at the beginning. We have overcome that now because we've been able to move from I can't to I can to our second motto, which is making visible the invisible and giving voice to the voiceless. Here I've got a little photograph which I can show you and can be in the recording because the students are wearing masks. The little boy on the right was a student who would never ever join in the classes at the beginning. He actually hid behind the cupboard at the back. He hid in the corner and he wouldn't join in the classes at all. My teacher was very, very careful about how she dealt with him. And she just encouraged him to join in. She never forced him. She never told him off. She never did anything to make him feel visible. She left him in hiding. And eventually he started crawling out. and he started joining in the class. He came nearer, he came closer, he started joining in the activities. And this is one of our great achievements, to have a student who wouldn't join in anything and then started joining in. So I'm going to explain more about how we make visible the invisible and how we give voice to the voiceless. These are the kind of schools we teach in, and we also do home visits. We include all the students in all the classes, and we have this notion that the teacher should not be the center of the classroom, nor should the syllabus, nor should the curriculum. The student has to be the center of the learning process. He has to be at the beginning of the learning process. And we do this partly by removing the desks. So our first rule, and our only rule really, is get rid of the desks. We don't use textbooks. We don't use pen and paper. We only have 2 periods a week in each of the schools. So we have very limited resources, and so we have even less resources in a sense, because we sit in the magic circle. The magic circle is the basis for all our work. And through the magic circle, the teacher herself or himself, we're all females actually in this program, but the teacher joins the students in the magic circle. And so we have this, there's a conversation going on in the side and I can't keep up with it, so I'm going to ignore it for the moment. So we have this notion that everybody in the class is included. There's nobody outside the circle. We have no gaps in the seats in the circle so that the magic cannot escape. The ability to move furniture is so important to facilitate learning, as Chris says, and it's the basis of our work. We have to sit in a circle, either on chairs or on the floor, doesn't matter, but no teacher up front. The teacher is not the transmitter of so-called knowledge. The teacher is a facilitator of learning the language. Okay, these are some of the educational needs that we deal with, and you can see that there is enormous diversity. I'm not going to read them out to you because I know you can all read. Some of you, you have a 13-year-old who has ADHD, so it's very close to home for you. I think everybody in every classroom all over the world has students who are challenging. And so this is why I wanted to talk to as many people as I could in order to be able to pass on this kind of methodology. I know that in some cases, people think that it's very difficult to work on inclusion, because if you have 1 or 2 or 3 students in your room who have diagnosed learning difficulties, you've still got the majority to cater for. And this is where mixed ability was always very appealing to me in the old days, you know, in the late 60s, in the early 70s when I started teaching. I always believed that mixed ability was enriching, because I never felt that you could level students. People here talk about leveling the students. I think as soon as you've got 2 students, you've got diversity. It doesn't matter what age they are. It doesn't matter what their abilities are. And so these are the kind of students that we're dealing with. I'm running a PLC, which is a professional learning community. I have 15 teachers who are teaching in 28 different places in this vast city of Buenos Aires, and they all live in different places as well. They don't live near me necessarily. They don't live near the ministry necessarily. So we meet once a month face to face, and I do workshops. We don't do too much technical details. we actually learn together. They share their ideas. They share what works and what doesn't work. They tell about their problems, and they find solutions for each other. We can't always find solutions, but we generally do. And that's because we're very positive and we're great believers in our system. I always think that teachers' beliefs are very, very important. We have a virtual platform on the Ning. We were going to move to Edmodo, but we didn't. We stayed on the Ning. We have a virtual classroom once a month in WizIQ. And I encourage them to present at conferences. I encourage them to do a living PowerPoint with me. I have devised a way of explaining our work through showing our work. So we do a living PowerPoint where we actually act out this information that I'm showing you on the PowerPoint. And we feel we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're working on the talking statues of Rome as a concept, and including Tessa Woodward's loop input theory. So we are showing the methodology by doing the methodology. And I encourage my teachers to research, to publish articles, and some of them have had articles published in quite important journals. So we're very excited about that. Dorothy Heathcote said, drama is the art of self-control. And many of our students need self-control. They are going through a school system which does not teach them self-control. They are kept in their seats. The rows are even, the desks are even in rows, and students cannot learn self-control like that, I believe. I think that we have to train them in the art of self-control by taking away the desks, by taking away the restrictions. And in that way, we help them to develop. Drama is the art of self-control, and as it's a holistic discipline, it deals with the 5 developmental processes of what we call the spice of English language teaching. This is a little acronym which I train my teachers in, so that every lesson must cover these 5 developmental processes. So we deal with social development, we deal with physical development, we deal with intellectual development, creative development, and emotional development. How do we do these things? Well, we do them all through drama. So, in having the magic circle, we deal with the social nature of the classroom. The classroom is a place where there should be cooperation, collaboration, where students should feel, and they should feel for themselves and for others. So there should be turn-taking, there should be understanding, there should be empathy. And I don't really care how many students are in the room. I've taught to groups of 45 students when I was in Singapore. And it really, really doesn't matter what size the class is. A lot of teachers say, oh, it's impossible to teach this way with big classes. I honestly don't agree, because I have done it with big classes. And I think it's a matter of training the students to work in a completely different way. Our classrooms are set up so as to be unsociable. And I think that this is something that's really, really important, not only for students with special needs, but for all students. We work on the physical. In our circle, every time we teach, we have the hello song. We have the We're Beginning the English Class song. Most of my teachers make up their own songs, or they use songs that we found on the internet, on YouTube. We use nursery rhymes, which we change. We use all kinds of songs, because we believe that songs are a uniting force. Songs bring people together. They create community. So we do a song at the beginning to open the class. We then, working in the magic circle all the time, we have the students greet each other, and we have the students use a ball. If you can imagine, not a very big basketball size ball or even a football size ball, but one in the middle, not a tennis ball because that's too small. But we pass the ball around, and the ball just acts as a focus. It also develops our second criterion, which is the physical development of the students. But I'll go on to that in a moment. So we do the name game, for example. We work on a goodbye song at the end, where the students each pass on by hand a slap, and it goes all around the circle, and then we count to 10, and the last person who receives the slap has to make up a way of saying goodbye today, which is a different way. So they have to say goodbye, or in a silly voice, and use their hands in a different way instead of just saying bye. So we are always working in the mind's eye. We're always working on creativity. We try all the time to do real learning in imagined worlds, which is one of Patrice Baldwin's sayings. Okay, physical development. We work on the body and on the voice. We do breathing exercises just as actors do when they're warming up to do the play. So a lot of these techniques come from the theatre, but they're actually in drama for education. We work on the voice. I've already done a webinar called Sounds Fun, which you can find on my blog spot, where we work with the students on making sounds. I think that we need to do that before we do pronunciation, because many of the sounds in English are so very different from the sounds in the mother tongue. And we work on using the voice, using their names for identity, and using the voice with their names. So we ask them to breathe in, we ask them to hold their hands on their diaphragms, they breathe in to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, breathe in to the count of 8, breathe out to the count of 8, then we take it to 16, and then we ask them to breathe in for as long as they possibly can, to hold the air, and then to choose a vowel sound where they breathe out with the vowel sound. So they all each choose a different vowel, and they say, for example, they keep it going for as long as they can, and in some cases this really surprises them, and they find it very very motivating, very engaging. They've never done anything like this in their mother tongue, and why on earth are they doing it in English? So we work on the voice. We have lots and lots of different breathing exercises, and then we work on keep fit exercises, if you like, body movement. So we do, for example, the limb count. So each of them works in the circle, standing up. They breathe in, and then they do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Half. And then we do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half. 1, 2, 1, 2. Half. 1, 1. But we do it with all the limbs. So it ends up being a lovely movement exercise. You're also using English, you're counting, you can do it with spelling, you can do it with whatever you like. And then we work on the cognitive aspect. So we always work on thinking skills. Basically, I'm going to show you this later, but we work with stories. We derive all our language from stories. And we do lots of warm-up exercises, we do lots of games, language games, from the stories. And we derive the meaning from the stories. So we work on cognitive growth and thinking skills all the time based on songs, stories, films, poems, movies, whatever you want. We have to have a trigger for the language. So we don't use textbooks. We don't have textbooks. And we don't teach grammar. We work on the creative skills all the time. We use the mind's eye. We work on the imagination. And we have students thinking first before they speak. So, for example, yesterday I was observing one of my girls in a school in San Telmo in Buenos Aires, and she was passing a scarf around to the students, and the students had to say, this is not a scarf, this is, and then they had to do an action with it. So one of them, for example, would wrap the scarf around their face and bring out a gun and just mime being a robber, mime being a thief. And so then it was passed on to the next person. So the next person says, this is not a, or I am not a thief, I am, and then they would use the scarf as a walking stick. I'm an old person. So these exercises really use the body and the voice and the mind and the soul and the heart and whatever other kind of abilities we have in this learning body of ours. And then we work on the emotions. Many of our students find it very, very difficult to control themselves. They have, as you have seen in the list, they have had traumas. They have suffered a lot. They come from dysfunctional families. In some cases, their fathers are in prison. In some cases, maybe their mothers are prostitutes or drug addicts. And our students still come to school every day, and we still expect them to learn. So we have to bring their emotions into the classroom, and we have to work on their emotions. So we use flashcards, we use stories. You saw one of the stories was called When Sophie Gets Angry, She Gets Very, Very Angry. You could see in that photograph we use material. We use red material for anger, and we use blue material for calmness. And thank you, Fabiana. And we try to move everything into the concrete. We are working with concrete kids in a wordy world. One of my colleagues taught me that, and I think it's a wonderful saying. We are working with concrete kids in a wordy world. So how do we make the complex simple? How do we make the abstract concrete? And we do it through educational drama. I've got lots and lots of exercises. I'm going to show you later how we work with action sacks, but I'd just like you to have a look at this quotation. I know it's too long, and I know you techie people are going to curse me, but I think it's one of the best quotations I've found so far. It comes from a paper by Wilkinson. Language learning through drama, as supported by the drama, brain, and language research reviewed here, can no longer be ignored. Drama involves the whole body and the whole brain in learning in a fictional context. It engages all of the multiple intelligences and matches the learning styles of all children. Enjoyable physical movement embeds the emotional impact of multisensory experiences on the cells of the body to form deep neuronal patterns in the brain and thereby enable memory and recall more readily than methods having less sensory impact. So we're talking about multisensory education. We're talking about using all the channels of the body which learn. We're talking about using the body itself. The body has a memory. And some of our students suffer from catastrophic memory loss for one reason or another. And we can help them remember by using this kind of methodology. Okay, we've got a video now. And this video I am able to show you because I have the permission of the boy's mother. Nacho is a boy who has a very rare form of cancer. And we were teaching him for 3 years in Buenos Aires. He even took his Trinity exam in speech and drama because Trinity very, very kindly gave me 10 scholarships, and we were able to have 10 of our students going to the Ministry of Education and being examined by a Trinity examiner. Maybe I shouldn't be advertising this, sorry. And Nacho was one of the boys who passed with merit. My teacher is a teacher of adults, primary students, and teenagers, and she has taken on board the whole of English in Action methodology. So how do I play this, Mercedes? Do I just click on here?
Good morning,
okay.
And thank you very much for this interview. What is your name?
Ignacio.
How old are you, Ignacio?
11.
And where do you live?
In Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Exactly your address?
837 Piedras Street.
Can you tell me this story about the penguin?
Yes. The penguin knocks at the door. I opens the door. I can see a penguin. The penguin is lost.
A penguin in downtown Buenos Aires?
Yes.
And what happened next?
I went to the lost and found office, and the man said, sorry, I don't have any penguin in my list.
And then what happened?
I went to the park.
And what did the bird say?
The bird said, sorry, I don't know where penguins come from.
And tell me, will you help the penguin?
Yes. I will take the penguin to my rowboat and row and row and row to the South Pole.
Oh, thank you very much for this interview.
You're welcome.
This is Miss Laura, reporting for Channel 11, downtown Buenos Aires.
Okay, thank you, Mercedes. I hope you can all hear me now, and I hope we can go back to the slides. I don't actually know how to do that. He is a lovely boy. His English was quite weak when Laura started with him, but she worked with her action sack. This is how we work. Each teacher produces an action sack, and the action sack is based on a storybook or a theme. Laura's action sack is based on the book called Lost and Found, which some of you, I'm sure, already know. He was trained through drama to do this interview, and this was just before he was taking his exam. But his English wasn't that good when Laura started with him. So in the action sacks we have a storybook or a theme, a ball, flashcards, a guide to drama activities, the play of the story, which I usually write. I usually write a play to go with the story so that the teachers have another kind of resource. We have pictures, we have a picture dictionary, we have paintings or books on paintings, poems, old clothes for costumes, and any kind of resource that we can get hold of easily. As I said, we don't have any resources, so my teachers produce their own action sacks. And I hope I've got some photographs of the action sacks to show you. Don't seem to be here. Ah, here we are. They're further back. Okay, these are some of the... Oh, okay, it wound on too fast, sorry. We work with Brunner's routine and excitement. So the routine is the basic English for classroom activity, and we do the weather, and we do the hello song, and we do the introductions, and then we have drama deriving from the action sacs, which is the excitement. So as you all know, anything which is novel sticks in the mind more easily. I know there's 83 in the room, Dennis. It's amazing. I'm really very, very moved, and I want to thank Marjorie and Mercedes for sorting this out for me. I was so nervous at the beginning that I didn't thank them. I'm sorry. These are some of our action sacs, and you can see that they have lots of contents which are all made by the teachers. My teachers are very, very inventive and very, very creative, but this is how we work. Okay, this is the story that Laura used with Nacho, and you can see that it's a lovely story about a penguin being lost in Buenos Aires. It's not in Buenos Aires, but we make it in Buenos Aires. And eventually the little boy finds him and realizes that he doesn't need to go back to his homeland, which is what the boy thought, but what he needs is friendship and love. And so it's a lovely story for our students in our situation. This is Laura working with blowing on his hands to show which is left and which is right. And this is something that we have to teach our students. Actually, when Nacho took his exam, he got out of the wheelchair and he hobbled towards me, and he threw his arms around me and he said, "Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan." And it was a terrible moment for me, as you can imagine. But he realized that we had developed so many skills that he had never realized he had before. And I said to his mother, "Can I use the video in teacher training sessions?" And his mother said, "Of course, if we can spread this, we will do so." And Nacho turned and he said in English, "I be famous. I be famous." So I am making him famous now. Okay, so what is drama? It's an activity which combines vocal expression and body action. It's true communication. I cannot understand, and have never been able to understand, how we spend so much time teaching the knowledge of the language when we should be teaching students to use the language. It's like somebody teaching me how the computer works. I don't want to know how the computer works. I want to know how to use the computer for my needs. And this is what I think we should be doing with students. We should be teaching them how to use the language, not about the language. And drama is this idea of moving something from your imagination, from your mind's eye, into the interaction between the mind and the body, so that it becomes a happening. So it actually happens in the room, in the present moment. And this is another thing which is so important about drama. We work on self-expression. I believe that all our students need to be able to express themselves. And we don't teach them that in English, but we need to. Okay, I realize now I've hardly got any time left. Have a quick skim and scan. Quick skim and scan of this, please. Drama is not about theatre. It's not about film. It's not anything which needs expensive resources. I believe in drama for transformation. We have transformed many of these students, and we have empowered them. And we have been able to teach them how to speak. When many of them, we have some selective mutes in our schools. And 3 of our selective mutes had been in their schools, different schools, for 3 years and not speaking. And when we went in, after 3 months of teaching them English through drama, they started to speak. Their first words were in English. So it's absolutely magic the way it works. we do a lot of thinking skills, and we eventually, if we had more time, we would develop it into literacy. And drama works for ELT because of these things. Okay, please skim and scan. Marjorie, please tell me. Oh, yes. One of the things I want to really emphasize is that drama is for everybody. It's not just for kindergarten, it's not just for primary, it's for secondary, where I have always worked, actually, and it's also for adults. It works with every age group, it works with every level, it works with every type of learning style, because it appeals to all the learning styles, and it makes learning joyous. It makes learning motivating, and it's engaging. Okay, I'm going to be answering your questions now, so if you can put some questions up if you haven't done already. I've got one here from Fatma. No. Margarita asked if we were talking about 12 to 16-year-olds when I was talking about secondary. I was talking about 11 to 18-year-olds, in fact. But as I said, I've taught kindergarten for 2 years in Saudi Arabia, and I've taught in kindergarten in Spain, in Marbella, at the international school. What is the major calling for the teacher, says Fatma. I believe the major calling for the teacher is to be able to facilitate learning. I don't actually believe you can teach anybody anything, especially if they don't want to learn. So the first thing is to motivate students, especially secondary students in my experience, to want to learn and to want to come to your class. You can't teach anybody anything if they're not physically there. So I always used to say to my students, please, please come to school. I come to school every morning. I get up, I have a shower, I do my hair, I put my school uniform on, and I come to school on time because I want to help you learn, and I want to help you grow. I want to help you to grow into adults who can function. And this, I think, is the major calling for any teacher. Margarita says, how is this possible with a constricting syllabus? I know this is a terrible question, and teachers ask me all the time, and what I always say is, keep your syllabus, change your methodology. You can do any syllabus through this methodology. I have always taught for exams, and I've always had really good exam results, because I think the exams are just one little teeny weeny, tinsy wincy, itsy bitsy little yellow polka dot bikini type bit of my teaching. The teaching is for the person. The teaching is for the innards of the person. The teacher is the teaching is for their interior life, not for exams. But I always get good always did get exam results. Chris asks, how can universities best provide English language support for, is it international? International students, classes, tutorials, optional or compulsory? Wow, Chris, that's a huge question. I think, first of all, we've got to train the UK teachers to teach in a way which is truly diverse, to teach in a way which is truly intercultural, and to use methodology which reaches all students. I'm teaching in La Sabana University Language and Globalization, and we look at all sorts of methodologies, and we look at policy. And I think it's up to ministries of education to look at policy. Michael Fullen's got some very interesting work on this, which I'm just reading, and I think it goes back to something which is very dear to Bill from Bulgaria's heart, where we try to narrow the gap between rich and poor. And I feel that the way we're going at the moment is just widening the gap. Fatma says you would like to know more about engagement through storytelling. Ha. Well, I'm going to be doing a storytelling session for IATEFL young learners and teenagers SIG in November. I think it's in November. Is it in November, Nelly? So you can join us then. We'll put it out on the young learners SIG. South Africa, Jan Thathya from Durban. Can you use this classroom setup for adults? Yes. How to adapt it? Try it. I always use the, the Nike advert. Just do it. Try it. Try it out and see. It may not work at the beginning. Jose from Argentina, how can you take part in this? Okay, get in touch with me. Get in touch with me. I'm on Facebook. Okay. Where can we find the list of my games and rules? Can you recommend the websites? I've got a blog spot. How can I tell you my blog spot? I'm not very good at remembering addresses. I'm ever so sorry. But if you... hang on. We don't use course books because of the prohibitive costs, and we don't use course books because they wouldn't be suitable for our students. This program is designed specifically for our students, and course books would not work. We don't teach reading and writing. I'm just getting my blog spot address for you, so if you can give me a second. There are...
included. Don't worry, Susan.
Oh, thank you. Okay. It was on the first slide, in fact. You can find in my blog spot the presentations, a lot of my presentations, which cover a lot of other subjects as well. I'm very interested in CLEAR. I'm very interested in intercultural work. I'm very interested in creative leadership. So you've got a lot of things on there. But specifically, you've got this presentation in a different shape or form. And you've got a reference to all the games. And if anybody wants the whole, I think I've written out more than 100 games now. If anybody wants the reference to that, I can put it up on the Young Learners and Teens SIG. Okay, I think I have to stop because it's 12 o'clock. If anybody wants to stay on for 15 more minutes, I'd be very happy to answer more questions. And if anybody wants to stay on. Otherwise,
I'm afraid.
Okay, bye Marjorie. Thank you very much.
No, I'd like to finish this up, and if you guys want to stay on, I won't be able to be here. But you could also answer on your blog. That would be another option, because we can get you questions. So you could answer those questions on the blog. But I would just like to say thank you, Susan. We can tell this is a big hit when nobody wants to leave the room and everyone is staying on the question. Just for the information about announcements, the YLT SIG is very active. We've got the importance of play in the young learners classrooms with Marissa Constantinidis coming on Sunday, the 5th of October at 5 p.m. And before that is BSIC, Small Words in Business Talk with Jean McCartan, also on Sunday at 3 p.m. BST. So that's the UK times. We want to remind everyone about the IATEFL web conference, the first ever, which will be Saturday and Sunday, 18 to 19 October. We begin on Saturday afternoon, go to the evening, and then again Sunday morning until, I think, 2 o'clock or so. You do need to register for it with Eventbrite. All the information is on the IATEFL website. It is free of charge for all. The recordings will be for members, but anyone can register and take part. LAMSIG